Today I'm joined by Scott Byrd, David Harris and CharlieTHFC to ask, are Tottenham becoming over-reliant on the partnership between Harry Kane and Heung-min Son? Who are the biggest competitors we have for the Europa League crown this season, and how will our loan players fare across various clubs in the coming 12 months? I'm Matt Hayes and you're listening to the Tottenham Fan Voice Podcast. Hello and welcome back to Matt Hayes' Tottenham blog and to the first episode of this Tottenham Fan Voice podcast. As I said, I'm joined today by Scott, Charlie and David to talk all things Tottenham and discuss various things that have cropped up in our season already. If you are new to the channel and you do want more content like this, plus various other things including transfer talk, match previews and reviews, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below and make sure to stick around to the end of the video where we will be revealing our massive collaboration coming up in next week's Tottenham Fan Voice podcast. So first of all, Scott, how are you getting on?
I'm very well. Friday morning out here on the West Coast in the US, so my weekend has gotten started. Fresh cup of tea and could be worse.
David, how are you getting on? We have some big things to talk about today. Are you all set?
I'm all set, all good, yeah, Matty. Still looking for all them United and Chelsea fans. They're still in hiding.
They're still hiding away, keeping away from us. Charlie, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. Good to be on once again, Matt. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. It's a pleasure having all of you on. I know you're all on Monday and on today again, so I do appreciate that. Just before we get started with things, there's a bit of housekeeping to get through. We heard about Sergio Reguilon's injury. He picked up on Wednesday night for Spain. There's a few quotes circulating from the Spain manager, Luis Enrique, saying that he was hoping it wasn't going to get complicated. He has come out today and actually confirmed that Sergio Reguilon is fit and he's ready to play on Saturday against Switzerland. And also the latest on Joe Rodon is that Tottenham, according to the Evening Standard, are preparing a £13 million bid to try and get him into the club. So it'll be interesting to see how that one develops. We had heard up until now that the two clubs were far away in their valuation of the player. However, that looks set to be rectified in the coming days. So hopefully we can get him in. There's a few other EFL centre-backs we could potentially be looking into. They are Chris Mepham of Bournemouth and Dale Fry of Middlesbrough. So we'll be talking a bit more about those on the channel in the coming days. But for now, let's dive straight into things. And I think there's only one place to start, guys, and it is with the amazing start we've had this season for Harry Kane. We know he's played 8 games, he has 8 goals and 7 assists. We saw him in his FIFA player rating reveal with his passing rating. He said maybe that'll get better for next season. David, he has 6 PL assists already this season, which is twice as many as the next highest players who are Grealish and John McGinn for Aston Villa. He's over nearly a quarter of his Premier League assists in his entire career has come this season. And with only 2 assists last season, he doubled that tally in the Southampton game alone. How much have you been impressed by Harry Kane at the start of the season?
Look, Harry Kane, towards the end of last season, I think even longer than that, for the whole season, I think we were looking at Harry Kane saying he's not fit, he's lost that yard of pace. And to turn around so dramatically at the start of this season is, look, he's playing at the next level now. His assists is something else. He's passing. He's had to adapt his game a little to get the basically because he's not as fit. He's not the same player he was a couple of years ago. He's getting smarter on the ball. He's playing balls in behind. Son's movement has a lot to do with it. I think that maybe Mourinho has maybe adapted Son's game a little to start running inside and Harry Kane dropping to put the ball in behind. His goal tally is next to none in the Premier League. I think going forward, if he keeps playing the way he is and Son's playing the way he is, we definitely have a shot at the title. And to bring in Vinicius off Benfica was a shrewd move, which will give Kane a rest maybe in some of the Europa League group stage games, so we're not over-reliant on him. And maybe we'll get him for the full season, so injuries don't play a big part.
Yeah, it was kind of that game against Southampton that we did see this kind of Kane dropping into these deeper roles. And you do often see strikers, if you're looking at Wayne Rooney kind of towards the end of his time at Manchester United, dropping into that kind of attack and midfield role and sometimes even deeper. And it's kind of premature in Harry Kane's career to be doing that, but it's more an adaptation of the way that we're playing rather than himself. And it's so beneficial to have Son making those late runs in behind defences. You know, it really exploited Southampton's high line a couple of Sundays ago, and it's something that we have carried into new games. And Charlie, talking about this link up that he does have with Son. Son, of course, himself has 6 goals already this season. He's the joint highest in the Premier League with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. The game against Southampton was the first time one Premier League player assisted another 4 times in a single game. And we all saw the graphic on Match of the Day that I think the link up between the goal combinations between Son and Kane is the most of any two players since Son actually came to the Premier League in 2015. Do you think we can now start talking about Son and Kane as one of the best attacking duos in the world?
Yeah, of course. I think we could have been saying that for a while now. Because look, we've seen in recent games just their link up. It's probably one of the best link ups I've ever seen personally in my time of watching Tottenham and football in general. It's really good. It's scintillating to watch, and you can see it, especially these first couple of games of the season. It's been fantastic, and I think why not? Why can't it be talked about as one of the best duos in Europe? Because look, if you think what other duos are there that are performing better right now, you could probably say none. There's no. And like duos that are up there regularly, there's not, in terms of duos, of course you get the individuals, but in terms of duos, I can't really think of too many that compare, even not just at the moment, but in general. Like I can't really think of too many to compare. So yeah, I think definitely they at the moment I'd probably say they are the best duo in Europe, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, we can sit here all day and we can talk about the attacking trios. You can mention Manchester City's with Aguero, Jesus, Mahrez, Sterling, all the different players they can play in there. Of course, looking at Liverpool's, you can go into the continent with Bayern Munich's, Barcelona's, Real Madrid's, and even the attacking quartet of PSG. But as you say, there aren't many duos out there, and the numbers that Son and Kane have produced already this season, they're both pushing on to the next levels of the career. But Scott, what I want to ask you is, are we becoming over-reliant on them? Because if you look at the link-ups for the goal against Manchester United, of course the first goal was Ndombele in his own, the second one was Kane assisting Son, the third one was Son assisting Kane. We had Aurier assisting Son for the fourth one, Højbjerg to Aurier for the fifth, and Kane on his own for the sixth. As for our goals this season, 10 out of 12 of them have had one of Kane or Son involved, and 7 of them have been directly both Kane and Son involved. So I know we still have someone like Gareth Bale to come into the squad, but are we potentially seeing an over-reliance on the two of them?
Well, I think over the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen the case where if Kane goes down, we rely on Son, and God forbid Sonny went down as he did last year, the goals seem to dry up. So I don't know if our over-reliance on them is anything new, but to answer your question, I think to some degree, yes. I think if that partnership were to go stale, find itself with a case of the yips or a funk or whatever, might be dangerous for us. But I do think, like you said, we've got Gareth Bale coming in, we've got Vinicius. We honestly, not even up top, we've got an entire team of new signings we're mixing in. So I think we'll see more positives roll through out of that. But I think for whatever reason, and we can easily speculate as to what that is. He's a wonderful man manager, but Mourinho has just gotten those two firing on all cylinders. And maybe it's the optimist in me, but I believe he'll get others firing on all cylinders as well. But I do think it's a great question, and I think to some degree, yes, we could be over-relying on them, and hopefully we find goals from elsewhere as well.
Yeah, and David, looking at, I suppose, that game against Newcastle, it was the first game this season where we really started to see that creative flair that we do have on our team. Were you concerned by the fact that when Son went off at half-time, things seemed to change, and we didn't create as much in that second half?
Yeah, look, it is a concern. Like, what are we going to do if we have the two of them out injured at the same time? But at the same time, that's the reason why we have the squad depth, and that's the reason why we'll be asking players to step up, the likes of Bergwijn. We need Lucas to step up his end product big time. With Lamela, look, I think we get like passion with the shirt. You need a player like that in every team. He's not as creative, I think personally, but the passion is what you need, and I think going forward he'll end up starting on the right. So when the likes of Bergwijn and Vinicius do come into the team, we do need to see end product out of them. Look, going back on the game against Newcastle, at the end of the day we were robbed. That should have been 3 points in the bag. The new handball rule is a joke.
Ridiculous law, it really is.
They showed nothing in that game, and then last minute of the game, Andy Carroll comes on, heads the ball down onto Dyer's arm, it's a penalty. I'm still vexed over that, man. Going forward,
we'd have 2 more points. Like we should be on 9 points at the moment.
Yeah, we should. And I think on that note too, that was the first time as a fan that I've come away from a loss and not felt some obligation to say, yes, we could have done better. We made a mistake. Let's look introspectively at us and what we could have done better. That was the first time I said we played a perfect game and we were robbed of points. I've really never felt as strongly about that as I did against Newcastle. It was ridiculous.
We've seen to have that kind of lack of luck against Newcastle in the last couple of years. You'll go back to 2014, that performance from Tim Krul. I think in the last 7 times we played Newcastle at home, 3 of those times the keeper has been the man of the match, which is a crazy number. And Krul and both Darlow a couple of weeks ago did break records. But Charlie, if you're looking at kind of the one thing you can criticise from our performance that day was that we didn't take our chances. As fantastic as we were, there were a number of ones we should have put away that we didn't. But since then, we kind of have seen that killer instinct come into our game. Just looking alone at the last 2 games, we put 7 past Maccabi Haifa and 6 against Manchester United. It's looking like we're taking that disappointment and the kind of frustration from what we didn't do on the day, and we're bringing that into our next couple of games, and we're getting games over the line quickly. So how important do you think it is that, as bad as that was and as frustrating as it was, do you think that can be something that could stand to us going into the rest of the season?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's all down to mentality as well, because I've said that if you're taking the frustration from that Newcastle game and then playing with, I don't want to say like anger or anything, but if you're trying to put it right, trying to put it to bed, put it completely behind you, and scoring 7 against Haifa and then 6 at Old Trafford, it shows the mentality that Jose is trying to install into this team. And I feel like sometimes the Tottenham of old, you can even go back as recently as last season, the first half in particular. I felt like, if you remember that Bayern Munich game where we conceded 7, we expected a reaction in the next game against Brighton, and we got battered 3-0. But this time, what I'm seeing now is that I know against Newcastle, we played really well, I thought, but got robbed. And the next 2 games, we came there showing that our intent is to keep going and not let something like that affect us in the long term. And I think it's all down to mentality. And I'm really, really pleased with what Jose is beginning to do with the group of players that we've got. It's something that I've been calling for a long time, being a Tottenham supporter.
Sorry, just to add to that, Charlie. I think we've been ruthless since that Newcastle game. I think we've learned a lesson. I think Mourinho's told the players, look, nice guys don't win anything. You don't have to be ruthless if you want to win.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah, even the Lamela red card, I know it was the Martial red card, right? But the Lamela was involved, and I think very polarizing. But for me, that's the type of thing that has been done to us for years and years, and we would just roll over and accept it, and we're never willing to dish it back. And Mourinho's cut that out of our game.
Yeah, and Scott,
completely agree.
Sorry, Matt, just to add to that as well. Lamela going down. Look, they were all praising Fernandes last year when he went down against us. Yeah, they were all praising him, calling it smart play. And now we don't get enough credit off Sky Sports.
It's the agenda. There's always been an agenda against us. Always.
We absolutely trashed them 6-1. Lamela going down was a stroke of genius. It's pure Mourinho shithousery. And looking at Sky Sports and all after. They're all slating him, and I think it's a joke. We don't get enough credit off Sky Sports for anything else.
Paul Merson's the one that's just he shouldn't be on Sky anymore. I don't know how that guy's still a pundit there, Paul Merson.
He needs the money, Charlie.
Yeah, he doesn't deserve it, that's for sure. He's not doing his job.
Just kind of looking at that regard, as David, you were saying, Mourinho's told us from day one that nice guys don't win, but we there's no doubt in the past we've been on a really kind of the bad end of a lot of refereeing decisions. And I saw a table a couple of weeks ago. It was the very contentious decisions and how teams have benefited and been affected by that. And United were way out on top of that table, having benefited 17 points from VAR decisions, and Tottenham at the bottom on 12 points. So Scott, I know you're saying, look, it was very clever from Lamela, and perhaps it was a poor decision from the referee, but isn't it about time we actually got that look?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you. I did take a look at that table you're referencing, and we were dead bottom. But I think what we're going to see under Mourinho, and Charlie and David have both already alluded to this, but just that siege mentality, us against the world. I think under Pochettino we had that to some degree, but it was more of like a how do I say it? It's just like a good feeling, kind of like puppies and rainbows. We're a family and we'll band together and get through this. But with Mourinho, it's like, no, we're coming for throats. We are taking on the world, and we welcome that. It's just exactly what we needed. I think Charlie hit the nail on the head. He said he'd been looking for this type of move for a while from Tottenham, and it was the only piece that we were missing, in my opinion, dating all the way back to Juventus when we shut off for 2 minutes and got knocked out of the Champions League in the round of 16. I remember that night, hopped on a podcast and just said, I think we have zero mentality, and until we figure that out, we're going to win nothing, and here we are.
Yeah, like I've said that. Even like the peak Pochettino days. I've even always said that there's just been something there in the we've got a soft underbelly that's stopping us from winning things. And I've as you said there, it is something that I've been looking for a while. That you can't always be nice guys in football because you're not going to win much, are you? So it's good that we're finally starting to see it.
I think personally, I think Højbjerg has a big part to play in that this season.
Yeah,
he's the steal that we've been crying out for. Since we had Palacios, I think Wilson Palacios.
Very similar
I
signing.
agree with you. We did have a soft underbelly. We just lacked that winning mentality. I think going back to that Juventus game that you were talking about there, I think if we had Mourinho in charge of that game, there's no way we would have lost that.
Agreed.
Yeah, we drew 2-2 in Turin with 2 away goals, and we were 1-0 up in that game as well. And they scored 2 in the space of 3 minutes or something. So it was that turnaround was that quick, and I feel like that was something to do with the mentality as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like talk about that game against Juventus. Obviously, we were in such a good position, taking the lead at Wembley as well, and we were, Juventus obviously one of the favourites for the Champions League that season, and it was so disappointing to throw it away like that, but. I think in a way that sort of mentality was addressed, because if you're looking at the season or 2 seasons after, whatever it was, we of course did get to the final, but it wasn't just, people are going to talk about the luck we had en route to the final, but there was a lot of mentality there, and that we started really poorly in the group and managed to turn that around. Got a bit of luck from PSV, I think, drawing with, was it Inter Milan in the last game? Things went well for us going through. We smashed Dortmund, got a bit of luck away to Manchester City, and the mentality that we showed away to Ajax. David, do you think Pochettino was starting to in some way kind of instill that mentality in the team, but that defeat in the Champions League just wiped away all of the good work, as it wouldn't be surprising if it did?
Look, there's 2 ways I look at this. The first way I look at it is, did Levy really back him in the window with the players he wants? And if not, he done the best of what he had. He done the very best of what he had. But second of all, everything was very friendly. Like, you never really heard him come out and criticise a player like Mourinho to try and get the best out of him. Listening to some of his press conferences after draws and all, he wasn't. He didn't call out the players enough, in my opinion. I loved my time under Poch. My old lad loved his time under Poch. But after that Juventus game was the first time my old lad turned around and said to me, he just doesn't have the mentality to get us over the line, and that's when I know. And then I thought maybe we were eating our words coming up into the Champions League final. But there was a lot of luck along the way. I think see, at the back end of our league form after Christmas that season, we were very poor. I think they just put all their heart and soul into the Champions League games. And I think that friendship, more than anything, got them to the final. The die for each other attitude. But the likes of being cynical, taking players down instead of letting them run at our defence and stuff like that was missing big time under Pochettino. And this is what we're seeing under Mourinho now.
Yeah, definitely. And you also have to look at, it's not just Mourinho doing it, but some of the players that he is bringing into the squad. You've got Gareth Bale, who is, as I repeatedly say, he's one of the most successful active footballers. He alone has 4 Champions League trophies. Even looking at, say, Højbjerg, I'm pretty sure he won the Bundesliga with Bayern Munich over in Germany. Sergio Reguilon.
I think he might have been part of that Champions League winning squad. I might be wrong, but he might have been, possibly.
No, I think you're right. He was, he was.
He might have been part of that squad, so he's had that experience at least. He might not have played, but he's been there.
Yeah, it's all about sort of like being in that dressing room, being in that environment. Look at Sergio Reguilon, of course, won the Europa League only last season, and he of course has time under his belt at Real Madrid as well. Charlie, how important do you think it is to have not only a manager but players in there who know how to win? Who know how to win? That's without even mentioning Joe Hart.
Yeah, exactly. It's very important because if you look at the players that we've brought in, I read this stat. It was all but one. All of the players Mourinho's brought in have won at least one title. I know it might not be the best of leagues, but like if you look at even the likes of Fernandes, the first signing he brought in, he's won the title in Portugal. You look at Bergwijn, probably won the Eredivisie a couple of times. You look at, of course, the likes of Joe Hart, 3-time Premier League winner, and then of course a couple of domestic cups as well with, again, as you said, Højbjerg, multiple trophies in Germany. Doherty, look, I know he hasn't won anything, but there's been a lot of talk that he does have a very, very strong mentality. And that's something that you could see with Wolves. So, look, I know Wolves haven't won anything, but you could see the way, since they've come up, they've had a very strong, the way they play, they don't give up. They're a very strong team in that sense. So it is very, very important. Of course, I haven't even said Gareth Bale, 4 Champions Leagues and then probably multiple domestic trophies as well. So it is very important. If you look at look, under Poch, as you said, I love those days. That was class. Just the football we played then was brilliant. But as I said, in that team, if you look at the team, who had actually won like much at all? Like I think the most we had was probably Alderweireld winning the Eredivisie, same with Vertonghen as well. I think that's all we had in that team in terms of players that had actually won stuff there. So I think it is very, very important to have winners in the team. And I think, yeah, as you said, it's crucial, I think, in getting over that line, which is what we've been crying out for.
Yeah, and it's just amazing that we're like, as Spurs fans, we're so used to players coming into the club kind of upping themselves as an individual and then moving on to win trophies. But it seems like we're at a stage now where players are coming to Tottenham to try and win the trophies. Fabrizio Romano came out today and said Inter Milan were in advanced negotiations for Sergio Reguilon before the player himself actually decided to come to Tottenham. And Jonathan Barnett, Gareth Bale's agent, is saying his aim at Spurs is to win the Premier League. But Scott, one player I want to touch on is Carlos Vinicius, because obviously he hasn't won much in his career. Perhaps he probably has won some domestic stuff over in Portugal with Benfica. But he, as a 20-year-old, so only 5 years ago, he was actually the 6th choice centre-back for Palmeiras' under-20s over in Brazil. So the determination and the passion and the character that he has shown to, within 5 years, to become a £40 million striker, as much as he hasn't been a successful player who's won a lot of trophies, how much is that determination and drive, how much is he going to bring to the team?
It's a hugely important point, and I did hear that he was the 6th string center back at some point early in his career. And Palmeiras, that's interesting. It's a decorated club who has a history of doing some positive things, and yeah, it's phenomenal to imagine he's 20 years old, and last year he was a leading scorer, I think points and assists total, but led the league in goals down in what do they call it, Liga NOS now, the Portuguese league, but. Seems to be a very talented player, and I highly suspect that you're onto something here, that Mourinho saw grit in him, saw somebody who was willing to just reach out and take something that he wanted and turn it into, like I said, the leading points tally in the league last season. And I think I'm not an expert on the guy, but what I'm seeing, he seems to be very, very intelligent when it comes to his spatial awareness and the runs that he's making. Makes very, very intelligent runs, and I think he's going to be somebody that can spearhead the line for us, as opposed to a Kane, who's going to obviously be more involved, as we've talked about already. And I think we need somebody to just have that mentality that I'm going to stick myself up top, I'm going to make things happen, find me, get me the ball in space, and I will create goals. So a different approach to what Kane does, but I think, to a much lesser degree, right? It's Harry Kane, but to a much lesser degree, I think he's going to bring, a similar mental approach to what Kane does to the line.
And that's a good point that you make, that, Vinicius could be someone who spearheads that line with Kane still playing in a deeper role. So do you think, rather than Vinicius coming in as a backup, do you think he could be someone that we could actually see in that first team with Harry Kane?
I think so. I think it might be a while before we see that. I think he's got a lot to do to prove himself worthy of time ahead of Son or Lucas or even Gareth Bale, probably, right? So I think the question for me becomes more tactical. Where does he fit in? But I think absolutely. I think as effective as Kane is at finding people in space and leading players into dangerous opportunities with his passing, I think if you can find room for Vinicius and Son to be on the pitch together at the same time, I think we become very dangerous. I think, as much as I love Lucas Moura, I agree with David that his end product needs to clean up a little bit. In all fairness to Lucas, I think he's one of those few players who is brave enough to get himself into tight spaces and almost try things that are a bit arrogant, but you need that player at times, so there's a balance there. But I do think, there's some opportunity for Vinicius to play, instead of Lucas, maybe. But yeah, it's an interesting point. And I think, we've all said as fans, we understand that no one's going to come in and truly usurp Harry Kane. So when people say, like, we need someone to come in and compete with Kane and compete for his minutes, it's like, well, there's not very many people on this planet that are going to be able to do that, but having a young guy like Vinicius who can come in, learn from Kane, allow Kane to mentor him, and then eventually, mitigate some of his minutes and maybe play alongside him, and especially somebody who just led their league in goals and assists. I think it was, as David said, a very shrewd piece of business from us, and a signing that we wouldn't have made in past years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good point as well that you make. We're never going to have someone come in and be the player who starts ahead of Harry Kane. We heard from Alvaro Morata It looks like we did dodge a bullet there, but just before he did sign for Chelsea, he said he was very, very close to actually joining Spurs, but he realised at the last winter that he was never going to become the first team player because Harry Kane is just so far ahead of all the other strikers, and it is that passing ability that I think sets him above everyone else, and of course he's only getting better there. Now look, we could sit here all day and talk about the attacking options that we do have, but before we get on to our Europa League draw, I want to talk a bit about the players that we have loaned out. And David, we know Ryan Sessegnon has gone out on loan to Hoffenheim for the season ahead. There's no option to buy in that one. It is a straight out loan, so he'll be coming back to us next July. We've heard from Ralf Rangnick, the former Leipzig manager, that he thinks Sessegnon is going to fit in really well at Hoffenheim. And from Tottenham sources, we've heard that Tottenham actually went out and sought a team who do play a left wing back position because they see Sessegnon challenging Reguilon for the starting place at Tottenham in the near future. So how do you think the Sessegnon loan move is going to work out?
Look, I wish him the best of luck, first of all. It'd be nice to see him go out there and give it his all. Hopefully he can stay level-headed out there, and hopefully he can play some of his best football. Personally, I don't think Mourinho trusts him 100%. When he played, apart from the goal against Bayern Munich, he didn't really offer us an awful lot. And judging by what we've seen in pre-season, I think Dennis Sarkin would be the next choice behind Reguilon and Davies. So rather than stagnate, I think it was shrewd business to get him out on loan and get him some first team football where he's guaranteed to be playing week in, week out, and get some confidence under his belt. There's no doubt the guy's going to be a quality player in the future. But just for now, I think he's stagnating, and I think the loan move will do him the world of good.
Yeah, we do have to remember, I think when we're looking at the amount of first team experience he's had, I think he was only 17 when he actually first broke into that Fulham squad.
16,
so it's very easy to
16.
forget. 16. It is quite easy to forget that he is still only 20. We've only seen him play 6 Premier League games for Spurs, 3 in the Champions League, 3 in the FA Cup, and as you mentioned, that one goal against Bayern Munich. And he has had his injury problems as well. So it hasn't been the easiest start to life at Spurs with him. A change of manager, of course, never good. And seeing us bring in players like Reguilon, Gareth Bale, and you could even put Vinicius in that area as players that play in the same position as him, both defensively and offensively on the left. So we do, of course, wish him all the best, and hopefully it is something that can work out well. Hoffenheim as well in the Europa League, so he can get some European experience there as well, hopefully. Charlie Juan Foyth, I know we were talking about him on Monday, of course, gone out on loan to Villarreal with an option to buy there for them for £15 million. He's had a lot of chances in the team. It was a difficult start for him. His Premier League debut, he gave away 2 penalties against Wolves. Kind of quickly rectified that with a goal on his second game against Crystal Palace, but he made that dreadful mistake we were talking about against Norwich in December, and we actually haven't seen him feature since. Do you think we're going to see him in the Tottenham jersey again?
Look, I'll be honest, no. I think, I've always said that I've actually quite liked him. I think he's a player with a lot of potential, and I think it looks like, from what he said on social media, it looks like he thinks himself that he won't be coming back, that Villarreal are going to take up that option to buy. And look, I think I've heard a few people say this, but I would have loved to see him in a defensive midfield role because of the ability he has, his technical ability. I just don't. Look, as I said, I think I said it on your stream, that he just doesn't suit the way we play under Mourinho. He's not that type of centre-back, and I think, in that game against Norwich, it was a dreadful mistake. I completely agree. And I think, of course, that was the last we saw of him. So I think it's a shame that he's gone, but I think it's probably the best for both parties that he goes, gets his confidence up, gets regular football. And I think as long as they take up that option to buy, we're going to make a profit anyway. So I think it's probably best for all parties, you got to say.
And I think you'd have to acknowledge as well he has had his chances in the first team.
Yeah, exactly.
He's played at centre back and a forward back. He's played at the right of a 3 at the back, and he's also featured in a right back as well. And
I never fancied him at right back. I think a lot of the fans were the same. He doesn't really have the ability on the ball, the attacking threat, and the pace either. But he's had his opportunities. We all wish it has worked out for him, but unfortunately it hasn't. And I do think, of course, being an Argentinian, I think Spanish football is something very similar to that. And will suit him there. So again, wish him all the best for that. And if it is made permanent at the end of the year, as you say, I think it would be best for all parties. And Scott, finally, Oliver Skipp, another player has gone out on loan. He's supposed to join Norwich earlier in the season. Had a fantastic start there. He's had a few Man of the Match awards. He's been Player of the Month for Norwich as well. He's another person who has had the chances in the first Tottenham team, and I think rather different to Sessegnon and Foyth. I think Skipp's actually performed well when he wasn't there, but do you think he's only gone out because of the sheer volume of choices we have in midfield now?
I think so. I think that is the strongest piece of business we've done as far as outgoings go. I think there's something to be said for keeping a guy like Skipp around the first team for a season like he was last year and even the season prior. then sending them out on loan to, use some of what they've learned being in and around the first team, put it into their day-to-day game, make sure they're getting those minutes, and then come back to the squad with, you would hope, more of a mental approach because of that time around the first team, and then the footballing piece because they've been playing a lot of football. So a really good piece of business, and it seems like he's kind of becoming that anchor, that first name on the team sheet for Norwich City right now, which I think is perfect. I think exactly. He's been on fire, and I think the only thing that I think maybe someone can argue is that they would have liked to have seen him loaned into a situation where he was playing in the Premier League. But I think if you put him in a situation where he's loaned out in the Premier League, it's going to be to a bottom feeder, and it's going to be a team that just gets pummeled and flattened over and over and over. And I don't think that's great for a kid's confidence either. So I think Norwich City was a great opportunity for him. They're going to be very strong in the championship, and I expect him to come back ready to compete for minutes next year. And that might sound a little bit silly, but he's a heck of a player, and those minutes are going to be important.
I think as soon as you've seen Skip being loaned out, I think that's when you knew Mourinho had full trust in Ndombele this season.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I think, as you say, Scott, it's really, we would have preferred to see him go out to a Premier League team, but you make a great point. It's not great to have him in a team where he's going to be beaten comprehensively each week. But if you're looking at championship teams, I think I don't know if Norwich will be right up there at the top. But if you're looking at the quality of player he is playing with in that midfield, I think Alex Teddy is still there. They've got Emi Buendia, Todd Cantwell, Max Aarons, Timo Pukki.
If they stay,
if they stay, of course, time for them to leave. But he could potentially be playing with Premier League level players. So I think that, of course, that will be a bit of a kind of a consolation if he is going to be playing down in that championship team. But another player who I do agree with, he does have a future at Spurs, and perhaps it is just the sheer volume of choices we do have in midfield this season that has been the reason he has been forced out of the club this summer. But now to look at the Europa League group ahead, and as I'm sure everyone knows at this stage, we have been drawn against Ludogorets, LASK and Royal Antwerp in our group this season. And look, it's a very favourable draw as far as it goes for travelling, only going to Austria and Belgium for two of those games. Of course, Ludogorets a bit different, going off to Bulgaria, but we have to be happy with that.
Yeah, look, it's a lot better than some of the places we had to travel over the last few weeks. I think with the draw we got as well as favourable teams, to be honest with you, I don't think we need to play Harry Kane in any of them, really, personally. I don't think we need to risk Son either. I think it's a very favourable draw, and it's one we should get through easily. Then roll on then the last 32, the last 16, the quarterfinals, semis, and then the final when you see us, Harry Kane leading them up, Jose Mourinho behind them lifting the trophy together. That'd be some sight. I personally think we'll give the Europa League a very good shot this year. I've made no secret about that. Mourinho has form in the competition as well with Porto and United. It's a competition he looks to win. It's a competition
100% record.
So it's something we can all get behind this season and enjoy, because we're in it for the long haul.
Yeah, I completely agree. I do think we have the chance to win it. Just to give us a bit of a background on our opponents, Ludogorets, the first team we were drawn against, they won the Bulgarian League last year. They're also the Bulgarian Super Cup champions. Last season in the Europa League, they were knocked out in the round of 32 by Inter Milan. They played English clubs 4 times. They drew once and lost once against Liverpool, and have lost their 2 games against Arsenal. LASK came 4th in the Austrian Bundesliga. They were knocked out of the Champions League playoff round last season and were eliminated in the round of 16 by, of course, Manchester United. That was actually the first time they played an English club, so United home and away, losing 7-1 in aggregate. So, of course, not the best record for them. As for Royal Antwerp, finished 4th in the Belgian First Division. They were the Belgian Cup winners as well. Got knocked out in the Europa League playoff round last season, so a bit of progress for them this season, making it into the group stage. They played English clubs 4 times. It's been a while. They beat Aston Villa twice in 1975 and lost twice to Newcastle in 1994. They have a few former Premier League players in there with Dimersi Ambekani, formerly of Norwich and Hull, and Richie Delat as well, who featured in England for Leicester and Manchester United. Do you have any worries about this group, Charlie?
Well, look, as some of you said there, we should be getting through this. Let's be honest. I think it was David said, we shouldn't need to use him. You'd think now with Vinicius in, that we could afford to give players like Kane and Son a rest. And now look at the squad depth we got. I think if you look at on paper our second front three, you've got Vinicius, Bergwijn, and Lucas. That should be more than enough to beat these teams, you'd think. And I think these players, they have to step up, and I'm hoping that we can see that, and it should be enough quality to get through this group. But I think, as you said, that I'd be surprised if we didn't get out of this group. So I'd fully expect us to win this group. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think the general feeling around the club at the moment is that we can go on and win this competition. I think I've identified 4 teams as our kind of main competitors for this crown that are already in the competition. Of course, we still have to talk about the teams dropping out of the Champions League. But AC Milan.
Say Arsenal, Matt.
I'm not going to say Arsenal. I'm not going to say Arsenal. I wouldn't do that. Maybe you could put Leicester in there, but if you're looking at AC Milan, of course, Zlatan Ibrahimovic just signed a new contract there. They brought in Sandro Tonali from Brescia.
He's good, Tonali. I like him.
A massive, really hot prospect. Got attracted interest from all around Europe, but wanted to stay in Italy. A Milan signing, I think, has gone under the radar. They brought in Jens Peter Hauge from Bodo Glimt in the Norwegian Eliteserien. He's one of the top performers there with high numbers. I know he's not one that a lot of people would have heard of, but having watched him myself a bit for Bodo Glimt, he is an outstanding prospect. They brought in Simon Kjær, a really experienced centre-back, to attacking players in Brahim Diaz and Ante Rebic. And that's adding them to a team that already has the likes of Gigi Donnarumma, Theo Hernandez, and Hakan Çalhanoğlu, just to name a few.
Donnarumma, great goalkeeper.
Donnarumma, fantastic. Broke into the team at 16, making his Italian debut soon after that. Fantastic goalkeeper. Roma have made some good signings. It was very important for them making that Chris Smalling deal permanent. They brought in Marash Kumbula on loan as well, another player who was attracting a lot of interest. Got Henry Mkhitaryan and Pedro for free as well. And again, a really good base squad in place there already with players like Edin Dzeko, Nicolo Zaniolo.
Zaniolo. I wish we'd signed him. He's quality.
Yeah, he's one that Tottenham are really looking at bringing in.
I really like him, yeah.
It's unfortunate we will have to come up against him. I'm not sure where he is with injuries at the moment. I think he has suffered another ACL.
Yeah, he got an ACL,
yeah,
recently on international duty, I think. If I'm wrong, I might be wrong, but
I think that might be 2 in a row, two significant injuries in a row for the kid, I think.
Yeah, it's concerning for him, but even Pau Lopez, a goalkeeper that was on loan at Tottenham, has improved drastically since then, and Juan Jesus, another player for them. I think Bayer Leverkusen are a team that could go under the radar. I know they've lost Kai Havertz and Kevin Volland, but they've replaced Volland with Patrick Schick. They've brought in Santiago Arias as well. But again, a fantastic team in place there with Leon Bailey, a player that we were looking to bring in as well a bit over the summer. Bailey playing up front with Karen Bellarabi, and players like Lucas Alario and Patrick Schick up front, and Jonathan Tah, a really good centre-back. And finally, Napoli, who haven't had the best transfer window. They brought in Victor Osimhen for £60 million from Lille, and also added Tiémoué Bakayoko to their squad on loan from Chelsea. But the attack that they have in place with Herving Lozano, Arkadiusz Milik, Lorenzo Insigne, Dries Mertens, they've got a really, really strong midfield with Fabian Ruiz, Peter Zielinski, Diogo Deme, and that is after losing Alan to Everton as well. And then Kalidou Koulibaly and Kostas Manolas in defence. There are some incredibly strong teams there, like really, really strong squads in there. And again, we still have to get onto the teams dropping out of the Champions League. But do you think, like I've been talking about with the Premier League, Scott, we, as much as we want to look at ourselves, we also have to look at the teams around us and decide then if we are capable of winning the competition. When you think of those squads, I think mainly Napoli, the really, really strong team they have in place there, how likely it is you think that we could go on and win this Europa League?
Oh, I think there's a very good chance. Yeah, I think honestly, regardless of our opponents, we are we're well equipped to win this thing, and I think it's kind of been mentioned before, but the depth we have is just something we're not used to. I still think as Spurs fans that the mental shift we have to make, understanding that we have a very strong set of players who can form a second 11 and go out and compete is something we're still getting used to. But, I think for me, the biggest threats off the table are Napoli and Leicester. I think Leicester's going to have a heck of a season. I really do. And I'm not sure they have the bottle to get all the way over the line and, win the Premier League or the Europa League. But I think that they're a very strong squad. So I think they'll give people some fits in this competition. And then, as you listed, Napoli's got a heap of talent, and I've got a really good friend who has been very involved in Serie A since like 2006, and he speaks a lot of their mentality and their ability to conduct the dark arts there in Napoli. And so I think as a lot of Italian teams are good at, right? But I think we'll see them give people fits too. So those are the two that concern me the most. And then, of course, everybody that's going to fall off in the Champions League, I think, some that come to mind. I think Salzburg will probably end up, falling into the Europa League. They're not going to be too much of a threat, but they're a good team. I think Inter could maybe fall off. I think they're a little bit of a dark horse, if maybe not the best phrase to use, a dark horse to get third place. Porto or Marseille is going to end up in Europa League for sure, in my opinion.
Got the group of death as well. The United, PSG, and Leipzig. Yeah, that's one of them three.
Leipzig, I think, or whoever, any of those three that fall off, you're exactly right. And even that Group D with Ajax, Atalanta, and Liverpool, you have to expect Ajax or Atalanta is going to end up in Europa League.
Atalanta are strong. I really do. I really like the look of them last year, Atalanta.
Yeah.
I think Atalanta have lost a few players.
I agree. So.
Yeah, they have lost a few players.
Yeah. So I think really to answer your question.
Sorry, go on, Scott.
Sorry, say that again.
Just a quick question there.
Mm-hmm.
Leon Bailey, what happened with that? You're the transfer guru, so you'll be able to
went for Gareth Bale.
I'm not entirely sure what happened with that. I know Tottenham went into the window not exactly looking for a winger, but they kind of identified one that if Gareth Bale became available, they would go for that one. But I think the main reason where these rumours came about was Leon Bailey was said to be interested in a move to the Premier League, rather than Tottenham themselves identifying him as a player. And I think it's we all see it in the transfer window. If there's kind of a weak position in Tottenham's side, when a player makes it known he wants to move to the Premier League, straight away people are on it saying he's going to be moving in. So I'm not entirely sure if the interest was there from Tottenham, but I do know, I think it was Fabrizio Romano who said in Alistair Goal as well that the only winger Tottenham were really going to go all out and try and get was Gareth Bale. So I think the Leon Bailey thing might have been a bit more rumours than anything. But yeah, no, still a fantastic player. And like as we're talking about looking at these Champions League teams that could drop out, a quick look through the groups. Group A: Bayern Munich, Atletico Madrid, Salzburg, and Lokomotiv Moscow. Scott, as you said, Salzburg potentially dropping out of that group. We've in Group B another very strong group: Real Madrid, Shakhtar Donetsk, Inter Milan, and Mönchengladbach. So I think it could be any of Inter, Shakhtar, and Mönchengladbach dropping out of that group. Group C also very strong with Porto, Man City, Olympiacos, and Marseille.
Olympiacos are a decent side as well.
Yeah,
third seeded in that group, but they really gave us a run last
knocked
season.
Arsenal out of Europa League last year.
That was a fun one to watch.
That was quality to see.
Yeah. Group D, you say the group of death: Liverpool, Ajax, Atalanta, and Midtjylland. Atalanta, fantastic, unbelievable in the Champions League last season.
Scored over 100 goals last season, I saw.
Yeah, they were crazy. I think they became the first team to lose their first three group games, but still progress to the next round of it. And people said they've been after losing a few players, they're not as good this season. But I watched them put 5 past Lazio away last week. Groups E, F, and G not as bad. I think if we're looking at that, it's probably going to be Krasnodar and Rennes dropping out of Group E. One of Zenit or Club Brugge from Group F, and then Dinamo Kiev or Ferencváros from Group G, and then down to Group H as well with PSG, Manchester United, RB Leipzig, and Istanbul Başakşehir here. So probably one of Leipzig or Manchester United there. So some very, very strong teams dropping down. But David, I know you said it quite a bit that you do feel that we can win the Europa League. Who are the main teams that you're concerned about from dropping out of those groups of the Champions League?
I'd be concerned if PSG dropped down, and they could, because they're very ropey in the Champions League.
Yeah.
Apart from that, maybe Leipzig, but apart from that, I'm not really too concerned, to be honest with you. I think we have a Champions League squad, so I'm not too concerned about who drops down. I think on our day under Mourinho at the moment, we can beat anybody, home or away.
Charlie, do you think there's any teams there that we'd be worried to get in the last 32?
Well, I mean, as you said, as David said, I think we've got a squad that's very capable of being good enough to beat all these teams. I mean, you look at the main threats, RB Leipzig, of course, we saw what they did to us last time. I know we didn't have any forward players fit, but they still looked a decent side. I know they've lost Werner now, so they might not be the same side. But yeah, you said Leipzig. Potentially, the way United are going at the moment, they could. At the moment, they're probably more likely to drop out than Leipzig are at the moment, you could say. So yeah, as you said as well, Salzburg, although Atletico, the odd year drop out, they've won it a couple of times whilst they've dropped out. So you possibly Atletico if they have a bit of a ropey start. So you never know. But I think, as you said, I think we've got a squad that's really good. I think it's good enough to definitely go on and win the Europa League, that's for sure.
Yeah, just to touch on a few more of these young players before we do wrap it up. Kazea Sterling in the last couple of minutes has just been confirmed to be joining Southend United in League 2 on loan for the rest of the season. But Scott, one that I want to talk about is Jack Clarke. And Alistair Gold said in the last couple of days that Jose Mourinho especially has been really impressed by Clarke's input in training. And if we're looking at him now, he's of course a young player coming up through the ranks. When he recently kind of joined up with the squad after last summer's transfer from Leeds, he's now training with the likes of Gareth Bale, Eric Lamela, Lucas Moura, Stephen Bergwijn, Harry Kane. How much do you think it can impact the player that he does become training at such a young age with these superstars?
Tremendously. It's a great point. I think we even talked about earlier in the show how for example, like with a Skippy, right? He got significant time in and around the first squad, and then is able to go and use that time, on a loan. And so I think with Clark, we almost could have benefited more from keeping him around last season, and then maybe loaning him out this year. And I think Jose's maybe thinking there might be a similar situation or opportunity with Clark to let him train with Gareth Bale, like you said, Son, Lucas, Kane, all these players who are highly touted. And then maybe next year he gets his loan move or maybe even surprises people and, win himself some minutes next year. But either way, I think this is a year for him to just absorb some of this world-class talent around him, learn from somebody like Gareth Bale, who I think, this is a bit of a hot take, right? But I think there can be similarities in the way they play football. And, of course, Jack Clark has a lot to do before it can be compared to Gareth Bale. But the point is, I think he can learn a lot from Gareth. So it'll all be about, what he does this year to give himself minutes next year. But either way, this is such an important year for him, whether he goes out on loan next year or get some opportunities. But it's all about developing his understanding of not the game, but the game at the highest level, which, we are now in. So.
Mm-hmm. And David, we've heard kind of on deadline day, I suppose, with regards to these young players, Jack Clark is one that could be staying at the club for the season, maybe some minutes there for him. But if a good move materialises, he could go out on loan. And Cameron Carter-Vickers, one that it seems the club are actively trying to ship, with Joe Rodon potentially coming in from Swansea as well. Do you think Carter-Vickers has had his chance at Spurs?
Yeah, Carter-Vickers, he's been there long enough now. He hasn't really made any impact under any manager. I think he's done at the club. We have to sell him, get him off the wage books. You have Tanganga, who's come through last season, and he's far better player than what he is. So if you're going to compare the two, Cameron Carter-Vickers has to go. He's just not good enough for our level. I think he'll be a championship player maybe in the future, could come up to the Premier League, but he's not at our level and where we're going under Jose. So he has to be sold, I think.
Mm-hmm. And David, I just want to ask you as well about Troy Parrott, who has of course gone out on loan to Millwall this season. Picked up an injury recently, and we definitely could have done with him against Slovakia last night. How much do you think Troy Parrott could, or how soon do you think he could be in that Tottenham first team?
I think this year we're doing very good, especially the club he went to, the likes of Millwall. If they can get fans back in after January into the stadiums, I think personally I think Parrott will benefit from it, because if he's playing bad, then Millwall fans certainly won't put up with that. I think it'll give him the kick up the arse that he needs to kind of push forward and come back to Tottenham and maybe challenge for a place. Personally, I think with Bale coming in and Kane there, I think maybe we could have kept him and let him learn underneath them two lads and guide them, give them all the experience, little different bits of advice. But look, he was too good for under 23 football. He was too good for underage football. He was just banging in the goals. So I think a move to Millwall to the Championship is it will benefit him the most.
Yeah, for definitely. I think all these young players that are going out, I think they do all have a future at Spurs, and hopefully we can see them in the first team sooner rather than later. Now, that is all we have time for today on the first episode of the Tottenham Fan Voice Podcast. Thank you very much to Scott, Charlie, David for joining us again today. Hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more of you on the channel in the coming weeks. Now, as I said, we'll be revealing this big collaboration for next week's Tottenham's Fan Voice Podcast. And I'm delighted to say I will be joined on the podcast next week by the one and only Fabrizio Romano. So make sure to smash that subscribe button down below if you do want to catch that video with Romano. Hopefully we're getting some big insight into a lot of Tottenham's business over the summer with Gareth Bale, Sergio Reguilon, and of course why that Milan Skriniar deal didn't materialise. I'll leave all the lads' links for social media down in the description below, so make sure to go and check them out if you have enjoyed their input today, as I have and as I'm sure you have. If you have enjoyed this video as well and you want more of these podcasts, make sure to smash that like button down below. And as always, thanks for watching.